We got a call this morning, or notified at 8 o'clock this morning, that there was a collision that occurred at Adelaide Street West and Brant Street involving a pedestrian that was struck by a motor vehicle. We left the station just shortly after that, and we attended the scene where we have taken measurements of the roadway layout, including locations of where there was cameras and evidence that was related to the collision scene. We also had our commercial motor vehicle enforcement unit come out and do an inspection on the truck that was involved. Certain measurements were taken on the truck. We took the drag factor of the road to determine the slipperiness of the asphalt. We had Stacy come out, and we were looking at the timing of the traffic lights, and I also timed the traffic lights, and we just want to make sure that they were working at the time of the collision.
And I'll just ask you a question. Is it what have you been able to determine so far, or is it too early to now analyze the data?
It is too early to analyze the data right now. I haven't seen any of the witness statements yet, but we will look at all the witness statements and where the vehicle, the truck, came to its final rest, and if we can try to determine where the pedestrian was coming from or which way she was going to. That'll help us determine the sequence of events for the collision and hopefully be able to determine where people were going at what time.
And a lot of people will say, well, the roadway was closed about 4 hours, but you couldn't remove the truck. You had to do a truck inspection here. Can you explain why that's done here rather than at another location?
There was no authority to seize the truck, so we have to do all our measurements and all our calculations and all our vehicle exams here on the scene. So while it's here at the scene, we complete that before we release it. It's not seized.
And there was a lot of, there was a total station that had to take measurements, or chalk marks, there were photographs taken. Tell me a little bit about all the detail that you had to put together here.
The total station actually forensically maps the scene and gives us accurate measurements of the intersection and the collision-related evidence that we download into a computer program when we get back to the office. So a lot of points have to be taken. That takes some time. The chalk marks were just so that we don't lose any evidence that we see when we first get here. So in case something blows away, then we know exactly where it was originally. The whole scene is photographed from down the roadway to approach the way that people are approaching the area where the collision occurred, and we take driver sight lines to see if the truck driver would have had any problem seeing the pedestrian as they were crossing the front.
And also it was happening around 7:30, so the sun could have blinded him. Will you come back tomorrow to look at the sunlight at that point and take measurements at that point, or no?
I'm not working tomorrow, so I won't be back tomorrow, but I will look at the sun angle. When I got here, actually, this whole quadrant of the intersection was shaded at 8:15. There's a large building there, so I'm thinking that where the sun's coming up, it's actually going to be shaded by that building. So I don't, right now, I'm not sure, but I don't think that the sun played a factor in this one.
So this was a fairly routine investigation. I mean, there were a lot of evidence collecting.
Yes. Yeah, so fairly routine, a fairly small scene. Some scenes, if you get two cars in a crash, can end up being bigger, but this was a fairly small scene. It didn't take too long to document, but generally we're looking at 3 to 4 hours minimum for a road closure together.
And is there a point where you collect too much data, who makes the call when you've got all the data? Is that the?
It's the lead recon.
And you're the lead.
Yes, and I'm the lead in this one. I have the outlook that you can never collect too much. So I try to get everything I possibly can at the scene. That's my best evidence, is what I see right here, right now. And if I'm not going to use it later, that's fine. I'd rather have it and not use it than go back and say, I needed that and I didn't get it.
And how will this data be used? How will the evidence, and for instance, will this probably be go to court at some point? Is that what you're...
If there are going to be any charges laid, then yes, it would be presented in court. It could be presented for insurance purposes, civil suits. So
it's important to be thorough.
You have to be thorough.